Hi, welcome to Artifact Live with Scott McArthur. You might have noticed a slight difference to the start of the show this week. The reason for that is that I'm in the middle of homeschooling and all my kit is being used by children. So rather than rushing around this morning, I had to look after the children. So that's why there's a slightly different start to the show. But there's another reason. This week, for the first time, I'm welcoming back a guest. And my guest this week is the wonderful Tom Morley. Now, last time we spoke, we had a really good chat, but after half an hour, the technology gave up on us, so we had to pull the plug on it. So we're going to continue our conversation from last time. But to remind you of what we did last time, here's a little video that we did just to sort of summarize what we did.
Thank God the drummers arrived. I'm syncopated.
My guest tonight, Tom Morley, and I think we could speak for a month on this.
What was the question?
There's an edge here that we can give you. I had complaints, they flooded in. Draw a different frame around the same set of circumstances and new pathways come into view. Looking positively underdressed as normal, my friend.
I thought I'm never going to get laid like this. I'm too quiet. 5% are the lookouts. I'm not a niche person.
Polyphonic.
Yeah, it is bonkers. It's very serious performance art. We were concerned about social change. Music's a magnet. It draws people. There's some people out there hating me now. I can feel it. Smash the State, and it's got a good beat to it. People go, I wonder what they mean by that.
Hopefully post-Trump.
If you have a disaster in the music business, you can have a kaleidoscopic nervous breakdown. Been in this Native American sweat lodge, which again was weird, chanting, pouring water over hot stones. We're all naked, you know. We're meant to be all calm, but of course we're all just covering our private parts. I hope the kids are in bed.
If a picture is worth 1,000 words, how much is a melody worth?
Well, all art, it all used to be in the service of ritual. People are always talking about I can't even say it, measurable results. Reach out and touch. You go, you don't have to tell us, mate. We're already doing it.
Look, we had a good time. Welcome to the show again, Tom. How you doing?
Who was that?
I've no idea. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah. I'm good.
Just another thing, just to let people know, there's the continuing issue with the Facebook groups and streaming into the chat with Restream. So I see somebody said, here, I'll just put you on the screen here, guys. I'm ready and raring to go. Yeah, who is that? Let us know who you are, because it doesn't say who you are on this bloody thing. So one of the things we have to live with these days, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, you have to just get to know all these different formats and just hope something's working. And
yeah. I mean, normally I have 2 laptops here so that I can overcome that problem, because you can obviously set up the Facebook group in front of you and you can see it happening as it's happening. But with children, you don't have that.
Right.
Yeah. So it takes away that little bit of slickness that you get sometimes. So how's things?
I don't have any kids, but I expect homeschooling has taken away a lot of slickness from a lot of people.
I have to say, the schools are doing okay. I mean, on the first lockdown, it was awful. I mean, there was nothing coming from the schools at all.
Yeah.
And I do wonder what they were doing. But anyway, this time they've got their act together, and we basically have a timetable now, so it is a lot easier. But the challenge is, of course, is keeping, particularly my 8-year-old Tom, keeping him focused on, you've got homework to do. He would rather, make a mess or go outside in the snow. And
yeah.
And I don't always want to discourage him from doing that either. So it's one of the challenges.
Building a snowman, in my experience, it's much more useful than knowing the capitals of the world. I've never had to use them, but I've spent many times building stuff at conferences, and I've thought, thank God for that snowman experience. They're not asking me what are the capitals of Africa.
Yes, absolutely. He's doing fractions just now.
That's useful.
Really, yeah, you do use that occasionally, I guess. But
Well, you do
the
if you're a drummer, because you go, is that an eighth note or a 16th?
right, okay. And do you know? Do you know?
Oh, I know. Well, do you know what? I have thought about doing a whole schools thing about fractions with drums, because it'd be funky, really funky. You know, I could make fractions the most popular thing in lockdown.
So
But
there's a
is
good.
anybody going to pay me for it? I don't think Boris is. So
Well, Joe Wicks seems to have done rather well.
I've heard someone said I should take over from Joe Wicks. They're saying he's looking a bit tired, and I certainly have a lot that I could do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I say, someone's got to pay me. I'm not. I've done enough kind of punting in my life.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's quite a good theme to start with that, Tom, because there is something about music that really gets us going, isn't there? I mean, there is something special about it. Why is it? I mean, for those of you who haven't seen Tom do his thing, there was a little bit of it there in the little stinger that we did. But Tom, can you just remind everybody what it is you use music to do with your audience?
Well, I connect them with their souls, their spirits, with their aspirations, with their values, their longing for social justice, for truth and honesty in our society, which is nice relief from just listening to the lies on TV and shouting at it.
So how does one connect with someone's values by using music? How does that work? I mean, that's it's difficult to do using words. So how do you
bring a big, because I mean, we all spent do I have a selection of matching hats? I'm just reading it. Because we all had an experience of 9 months in our mother's womb, black, white, you know, wherever we are in the world, feeling fairly comfortable, and on our own sort of personal development course with someone else paying for it, you know, just growing. Then we all popped out into these different worlds, but the thing that connects us, right, is being next to our mother's heartbeat and feeling good. So consequently, if I just get any group playing a beat together, they're reminded of that great whole feeling, and they stop thinking about those emails they should have sent, or should I copied him and her in, and they just get into their hearts. It's very easy, and once you're into your heart, you think, oh yeah, what do I take a stand for in the world? And they're generally quite good things. I've never met many people who say, I'm taking a stand for evil and resentment. they generally go, oh, I love my kids.
yeah.
I'm standing for social justice and honesty and trust and teamwork and family and belonging.
Yes.
So you get this kind of almost young, you know, that's interesting. I did it with a young voice, but and then you do that collectively with 200 people. You don't need to recreate Woodstock. You got it in a corporate conference in 10 minutes. It's very easy. It's very easy, but you just got to have the nerve to do it. And in order to have the nerve to do it, you've got to have lost everything about 3 times in your life, which I have. So I don't care.
Yes. Yes. And in terms of the current situation that we're in, I mean, obviously you and I know each other, and we've both been through quite a lot of, excuse me, guys, shit with the way the speaking industry has developed. But I think it's fair to say that there's a group of us didn't give in to that. And I personally, I'm very proud of you as a friend and what you've done, because I know some of the trials and tribulations you've had with, you know, moving from doing what you've just described to what you're doing now. So could you, I hope that isn't too namby-pamby. I don't care if it is. But can you tell people a little bit about that process that you went through? Because from being a musical storyteller on stage to being a musical storyteller on cam, or in your case on bloody cameras, how did that journey come about? What happened in here mainly, but also physically and in the studio? What happened?
Well, as you say, I used to get people together on these drums
Yeah.
Which were in a van outside, and I brought them up here as a backdrop. And I thought, well, what are my skills? Getting everybody to play in rhythm, in time, in sync. You lot over there, you play this, you lot over there. Do you hear how your parts, even though they're different, they lock together as one team? Is there a metaphor there? Yeah, one team. It's my job, but listen to his job while concentrating on my job. Yeah, I've got to do my job. So, yeah, so all that was gone because we can't play in sync. Okay, then. I know another way to bring you together. It's vocal harmony. You lot, you sing this. It's quite a simple part. You got it? Yeah. All right. You lot, you sing this. Quite a simple part. You got it? Listen to them together. We cannot sing in harmony alone. We need other people. You got it? Got the metaphor? Yeah. We're a better company. Pay him. Can't sing in harmony. Everybody's on mute. So everything. One more thing I was good at was, well, we don't want to do that in the office. People will laugh. Let's go away to some big country house and have a gala dinner and get everything paid for. Lock the doors, bring down the shutters, then we can drum. And nobody will know. Everyone's doing it at home with their kids watching. We can't do that either. So everything.
Yeah.
Every skill I had. So, but I thought, and this was the trick that a lot of people didn't quite get their head around. What were the outcomes? The outcomes people wanted were bonding, taking a risk, getting out of their comfort zone in a way that they learned something by doing it together and getting a result. You always have to deliver a result. Kind of that water cooler moment of, oh, we're doing something. So I just thought, well, I'll forget about my skills. I'll just concentrate on what people want me to deliver, which are those things, and I'll find out a way to do it online. So I'd done that within a week.
Yes.
And I just started banging it out there and seeing if it worked, and it worked. And everyone said, how did you get around the latency issue? I did not get around it. Nobody's got around the latency issue. It doesn't matter because if we're all playing at 130 beats per minute, and some people are like this, and some people are like that, some people are like that, it doesn't matter because we're all out of time at 130 beats per minute.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the latency issue because that, for me, hides a whole load of other issues that people, if I can say it without sounding like an arse, a lot of people have got caught up in the technology rather than getting on with it.
Yeah, just think about the outcomes.
Yeah,
technology doesn't matter.
And it's been astonishing watching it. And I did a gig with 100 odd companies last week, and it was great. It went really well. It was fine. But the number of them that were, the poor souls were really nervous. They were bored. And that was just the speakers. You know, it's astonishing that after a year nearly that you know, and I feel for these people. I'm not being arrogant. Honestly, I'm not. I think it's hard. And what I think you do beautifully is you just dent that hardness a little bit. You just give them a little, you know, you don't, it's not like, I used to feel quite uncomfortable sometimes at conferences when I was in the audience, when you get, you know, the drum clinic guys rock up.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you go, oh, Jesus Christ, here we go again, you know?
Yeah, I've heard it as I've walked into halls for 20 years. Oh, why didn't I take annual leave? You know, but do you know what? Within 5 minutes, they're in. Oh, thank God this guy turned up. I was fed up with PowerPoint. Yeah. And I always know I'm going to get that. But online, sorry to interrupt you, but online, I can get to them even quicker. And the thing, I think the difference, it's become clear to me that there's two camps really. There's the people who are waiting for it all to come back, whatever it is that they were missing, live, water cooler, in the bar, talking football, talking about the A32 being blocked on the way. They love all that. There's others who think thank God, you know, I spend more time with my kids. I don't have to dress up, unless you're me, of course. But I don't, you know, there's all these advantages. We can connect. You know, I've done events with people on several continents from the same company, and they said, "Wow, I just felt like," they said, "Yeah, I just spent we feel like we spent 2 hours in the bar." You know, and they say, "Can you leave the link live? We'll have a chat now." And I can come back sometimes 2 hours later, they're still talking.
Yes.
And their carbon footprint is nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing, you know. And so if they were worried about that, flying people all around the world for conferences just so they could stay up in the bar, which is very valuable to them, I have to say. You know, a lot gets done at those conferences as far as connections that they can't do just by email, but we are doing much more than email with online now. Like I say, the conversations I've heard have been as deep, as kind of meaningful, and as loose, you know, as if they've just been through a gala dinner, got their award, sat in the bar, it's 3 o'clock, and they're that connected. It can be done, and it has to be done because they've taken all the jumbo jets apart. They're all in, I think, Arizona, being dismantled. So there is no going back to normal.
I have I'm going to come back to this later, but I do a show on a Friday night, Tom, about music, and after it we have
the Apollo.
Yeah, it's quite a cool show. We're really proud of it. We've got 8,500 people tuning in. You know, it's ridiculous. But what happens is we do an hour. Me and my friend Andy do an hour, and then after it we have a Zoom after show party. And absolutely the same. I mean, I'm sure there are people on that don't want to do that, but there is a group, and it's a growing group. Every week we're on there till 2 or 3 in the morning, you know, and it's amazing. And people are what I've noticed is that I think maybe, I mean, I could be wrong with this, but I think maybe because the show's about music, music's one of these things that people resonate with for whatever reason it is, whether it's live music or just listening to music.
Well, it's sex.
Talking about it. Yeah.
It's what they've had sex to.
Yeah.
It's what got them together to have sex in the first place, and it's what made them feel sexy listening to it when they were teenagers. There's really no mystery. Funny, if you say that conference, a conference, say, "Oh, don't mention sex." What are they talking about? Don't mention sex. Everyone's thinking about sex all the time. They're taking their wedding rings off in the foyer. You know,
it is interesting that I'll come back to that, because that reminds me of a conversation that I think we've had before about swearing.
Can I tell you why you're a good storyteller?
Yeah.
You constantly say, "I'll come back to that."
Oh, I know.
I've seen it in all your broadcasts, right? I'll come back to that. So when's he coming back to it? Oh, I've got to stay watching because he's coming back to it.
One of the tricks of the trade, Tom. But no, I will come back to that. But I once had somebody say to me, I was speaking at a conference and I'd said I'll come back to that, and I must get T-shirts with that written on. But and I did come back to it, but I came back to it 24 months later. Because they asked me back to do the keynote in the next year, and I said, "Do you remember I said I'm back?" Right? Yeah. And anyway, so this thing on a Friday night, it's turned into this sort of. I mean, I feel really quite. I'm not the sort of humbly type, but I feel really quite humbled by it, because these people are now. I mean, I've had gifts sent to me. I've got a guy in America has sent me all these, because I'm into space, and he sent me all these NASA things, and I've got you know, and it's like, well, why are they doing this? And what they're saying is, it's like going to the pub, Scott. It's like going to the pub.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good, and I think music plays a big part of that. And I will come back to that, because I want to tell the story. I've never told the story I'm going to tell about the Glasgow Apollo. I've told it once, but I'm going to tell the story today. So there's an artifact behind me that you might not have seen before, folks. That's a clue. But it's I'm going to come back to that today. But Tom, again, go back.
Man, you're so tantalizing.
Oh, now, good. Dangle.
What's the story? Man, you're evil when it comes to catching my time. Because I was going to go and write a proposal for 20 grand, but I'm just going to stay on and watch you. Thanks, keep that 20 grand.
It's only money.
I've got to know this story. What's the artifact?
If you remember last time, we spoke about here's Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. Yeah, I remember going to the pub as well, Jeremy. and you know, I had some really bad news last week. Sorry, my emotions are terrible sometimes. One of the guys in the pub died of coronavirus. Now, he was a guy called Andy, and Andy was a character and a bit of a rascal. He was probably in his late 60s. And he didn't keep that well. So he had that underlying health problems that a lot of these poor souls have got. And he got coronavirus about 3 weeks ago and he's gone.
Wow.
Which is terrible. But you know, Andy, good man. But that sort of experience, I think the randomness of the pub we can do online. The intimacy, I'm not so sure about, Tom. I don't know if you've got a thought on that. But I link that to another experience. And actually, Jeremy, you were part of it. We did some of us speakers are part of a group called, it's just a club type thing called the Professional Speakers Association. And this year we had a conference. I don't know if you were there, were you? I can't remember if you were there or not. But we did a sort of networking thing. Did you hear about this, Tom? The networking that went on at that? No. It was mad because I hate networking, right? I am one of these people that, you know, you go to these conferences and they go, you need to do speed dating. And I'm like, oh, piss doing that, right? I don't want to speak to a bloody accountant who I don't know or don't like, right? Sorry, accountants. Anyway, what they did at the thing was, it was amazing because they did this thing where you had to be on cam, obviously, and then they randomized how you could meet other people. So you literally were sitting there and there was a tick, 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 donk, and somebody was on the screen. Now, I think there was 300 odd people there, maybe even 400 odd people there. So the chances of meeting somebody that you'd never met before were quite high. Yeah. And you know what? It was like crack cocaine. Honestly, it was like, right. I'm going to avoid all the talks, but I'm going to talk to these real people. And it was it was a 5-minute bang, bang, bang.
Oh, right. I was going to say, it was a time limit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But I mean, there was the usual sort of people who are on there. Oh, yes, I sell courses in how to, you know, the usual crap. But the majority of people were going, oh, hello, who are you? What do you do? And it was brilliant. And I think that, and I did feed this back to the chap, the guy called Steve Buston, who runs it at the moment, that I thought it was the best use of time online I've ever had. You know, I really thought it was brilliant, Tom. And that, I think, links to what Jeremy said about, you know, the pub experience. You know, there's something about it.
Yeah, and you know what about that is that, you know, I was saying in this, what I'm calling the paradigm shift, is that in this new paradigm, what you've just described is what happens at a really good networking event physically, because sometimes you might get collared by someone, or someone you want to talk to has to leave, or they're too busy talking to someone else, or something goes off, you know. But here it's lasered, so it's bang, bang, bang. It's like your ideal kind of event where you don't have to shuffle over, you don't have to go, sorry, am I disturbing you? Bang, just appear in front of you. Or do you mind if I join in? Now you don't get a word in edgeways, and then someone tries to sell you a business card on you. When do all these people? I mean, anyway.
Oh no, we could have a whole show about that.
I love them really, but what has happened online, and I've seen this over and over in all sorts of areas. I mean, even like, you know, I've done parties for people where, I know you did one last night for your wife, but where the people who could never have got together, people who have had to get babysitters, old people who couldn't travel, here they all are, and they are just having a whale of a time. So that aspect of let's get back to normal, we've got a much better normal now. We've got a much better carbon footprint, and we've got much faster connection. And we don't have all those embarrassing, for if you're an introvert like me, all that kind of shuffling around, trying to get a bit of attention. You know, forget it, it's gone. It was never any use to us anyway, and now it's gone.
I mean, I always, if I'm absolutely honest, I just hid behind the booze. I used to just get, because I got so So I really don't want to talk to. I mean, it's not the other person's fault. I don't think. I mean, it's my fault. But it was like, oh, really?
Well, no, I mean, if you're an introvert, it's painful to have to do all that. Extroverts don't understand, and nor do they have to.
No,
they like the kind of energy that comes from it. But
yes,
introverts get exhausted. I remember the first time you and I met at PSA. I've started to get feedback, by the way, from your speaker. Have you turned it up? Marble Arch. I remember you saying, Tom, let's get it. We didn't even know each other, but you'd been watching me online. Tom, let's get out of here and get a pint. I think we must have sunk 4 pints of Guinness before we talked to anybody else. But introverts are like that. And then we sang a song for Maria Franzoni on the streets of London with a drum and
there is a recording of that, somewhere.
Recording, so bootleg.
Can we go back to music then? Because one of the things that
I'll come back to that.
I find with music, I'm the sort of guy, and this might just be nonsense, right? So I'm not claiming that this is right, but I'm the sort of guy, I don't dance, and I listen to music that you listen to. So I'm not really into, I mean, I'm into rhythm, but I'm into complex rhythm and, variable rhythm. And I'm not so into the sort of, Motown and, dance music. I mean, I'm a progressive rock fan. So I want to see different time signatures that I've never seen before. The bands I like are like, where did that come from? That's what I like. But it doesn't really matter that. But I think what matters is that the common ground of it for me, I mean, you and I have had these conversations, but I mean, our musical crossover is virtually zero. We don't have the same, we do it in the classical stuff, but not in the pop side of things, I don't think. But there's still common language, isn't there? There's still something about it that it's a bit like football. I used to do a thing, back in the day.
Hang on. Yeah. Are you going to ask me about music? Because I'm dying to say something. Now, if you
go then, you say, I'll
all about football. Tim, you took me to see Tim Minchin, which I'll always be grateful for. And I remember both of us sitting there just amazed. And I tell you what, I thought was amazing about that is that whatever, if he did a gospel song or a rock song or he did all sorts of styles in that show. He would do the essential rock song, the essential gospel song, with the more complex chords rather than just C, F, and G. I mean, that guy, he's an absolute genius.
Oh, yes.
And I remember you and I came out there high as kites. So I think we really connected on that, not just through the music though, through his lyrics, through his presentation, through his personality, through the surprises in his show. It's suddenly you'd think, oh, he's just going to be alone on stage. And I remember at this point, he said, and he thought, well, good, he's good, solo. And then he just went and tugged the curtain at the back. Suddenly, it's this whole band. They must have been standing there silent for half an hour.
Yeah.
Bang! Suddenly all these lights came on. We're in the middle of a rock show. I mean, so I think we totally connected at that time. And I have to warn you, I know you like heavy rock. You should see that, that Japanese guy who studied water crystals.
Oh yeah.
Your body, man, is wrecked through listening to all that music because all your cells are jangled. Go and listen to some reggae.
There's exactly the opposite being shown in other research. So as with a lot of scientific research, mate, you need to don't start me on this. Single studies don't tell you anything.
I've challenged him on his niche. Well, look, I'll come back to that anyway. I've got definitive evidence that I'm right, but I'll come back.
Okay. I would always say you've got definitive evidence that there's suggestion that you might probably be right.
No, I'll send you the Lancet.
But I think Tim Minchin's a good example, isn't he? Because he does do. I mean, I remember Alice Cooper many years ago saying, somebody asked him what sort of music do you like, and he said, I like good music. And he said, I like Michael Jackson because he's brilliant at pop music. I like Metallica because they're brilliant at metal music.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Bob Marley because he's brilliant at reggae music, and I think that's right. I mean, I think that is right.
Well, people always want to put you in a box.
Oh, they do. And that's another thing that's really interesting about music. There used to be a lot of tribal things around me. I mean, it's still there, but it's not as, you know, you'd get the mods and the punks and the rockers and the, you know, whatever. That's faded.
Well, the thing was, it was a bit like art, you know, like Marcel Duchamp shut down art because he got to the ultimate art. I mean, there really shouldn't have been any art after him, but anyway, it carried on because people had to make a living. But it's similar in music, that every kind of genre got invented, and now we just kind of recycle everything, or jam bits together. There hasn't been anything new for a while.
Yes.
So that's why, and also people like this sort of. Do you know what? When I was when I was a lad, right, you would not get someone on an album saying, "All right, this is my Paul Simon song. This is my Bob Marley song. This is where I sound like Kylie. This is where that just wouldn't happen." You'd go, "I'm Jimi Hendrix. I play guitar. I'm dead sexy. Great. Well, yeah, and I'm going to be consistently that for my whole life until I choke on my own vomit." You know, and that's what people did. Or we watched the Beatles evolve, but they evolved with the culture. They didn't go, now we're going to sound like David Bowie, or now we're going to. But people do that these days, and it means you don't. It means that they make very good songs, but you don't really have a sense of. Yeah, all right, I'll follow you and your culture and your thought. Like when the Beatles learned to meditate, I learned to meditate. There was no question. You know, it's just following them as people and going, yes, all right, I'll sign up to you, you know, or I'll sign up. Some people signed up to Bowie, you know, through all these different phases. And they got the clothes and they did the makeup. Right, Bowie's doing this, I'll dye my hair that colour. So you feel like you're part of something. Yeah, I don't know who I do that with now. I'd see people are writing in the chat. My wife would be very happy if I was Tim Minchin, to be honest, but he seems quite consistent. Yeah, well, quite consistent in her fantasies. I don't know, can you cut that bit out?
Of course. I actually saw Tim Minchin on his first ever tour in the UK at the Edinburgh Festival, and there were about 30 people there. You know, he was in my university, basically in the canteen.
Yeah,
where I used to, and he came on, and everybody went, "Oh, who's this guy?" You know, with no idea who he was. It was a typical Edinburgh Festival. You just kind of, I don't know if you've ever been there, but when you go to the festival, and I've been for 28 years in a row now. And when you go there, you literally just walk into a pub, and there's somebody there, and it was Tim Minchin, and he absolutely effing nailed it. I mean, he was amazing. I mean, but the thing about him, and I think this is where I'm jealous about how people like you and him can mix story with music. You know, I can talk about music, and I can play a bit of guitar. I'm not very good, but I can play. I've got a decent guitar and all the rest of it. Doesn't mean I can use it, but I do envy that. And the way he's a master at it. I mean, there's one he did about, and I know it pushes some people's buttons that don't really care. There's one called Storm. I don't know if you've come across Storm. And it's about pseudoscience, and because he's very scientific in his outlook, he's very rational in his outlook. Yeah, I think he goes too far sometimes, personally. But you know, I'm on the same page. But he tells it through storytelling and music, and actually, if you read it, it's quite brutal, Tom. No, he doesn't mince his words. He just says, "You can take your crystals and your woo-woo and stick it up your arse." You know, he doesn't. But he gets away with it because he's doing it in a nice little melody. You know, it's quite interesting that
he did a song when we saw him. I can't swear, but it's "F you," you know. Yeah. And so he's going, "F you, you right wingers." We're all sitting there. Yeah. F you, you climate deniers. Yeah. F you, you white middle class people from Hammersmith on a night out. I mean, he really he lasered into us.
He did.
We were still there going, yeah, you're right, mate. I mean, I think it's quite brilliant. And exactly that edge, you think, wait a minute, has he gone too far now? But he doesn't care. He just
yes.
Or if he does care, probably doesn't need the money. He thinks, if I blow it, I blow it. But anyway, I just feel like doing it tonight. But
yeah. So just before we're already well into our time here, Tom. So there's a couple of questions here. I know you can see them, but Jeremy's asked a couple of and made a couple of statements there. That are, Jeremy Nichols, thanks for joining us, Jeremy. Hi, how you doing? He's quite right about that networking experience. He's saying there, if they were dull, you knew you only had a few minutes to bear them. And it would be something.
I'll let you read them. I'm not going to look. I'm going to look at the camera.
Yeah. So no, Jeremy's just saying that the good thing about the 5 minutes thing, if somebody was dull, you only had to put up with them for 5 minutes. So you stood at the bar, and he then says, "I wish that that could be introduced into real life conversations."
Yeah, everybody wants that. Everybody wants to be able to put people on mute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another thing that people are going to put in t-shirts shortly.
I think so.
Yeah. I think this is from Derek. How do you entice the person who really does want to hide in the corner, but does want to participate, a visual introvert? Now that's interesting. So how do you get the visual introvert to participate, Tom?
Sorry, what?
Oh, have we had a hang?
Really does want a visual introvert. How do I entice them? Well, in a conference, I used to say, some people would hide in the back row. On Zoom, we're all in the front row. So you see that, and the thing is, you can't make a mistake. In a conference, if everybody's going like this, and you really can't get that right, and you think, oh no, I'm the only one who's going like this, then it could be that you stand out and feel embarrassed. It hardly ever happens, because everybody kind of gets into this group flow. If that happens on Zoom, it really doesn't matter, because everybody's out of time. So so I mean really, if you're super introvert, you just won't put your camera on anyway. But in the question, there's a kind of inference that you do want to get involved. You just want the right invitation. I mean, we can only go so far with that. You have to do some personal work and turn your inner critic into your inner ally, which, if you come on one of my residential courses, I've shared the stage with Tony Robbins. I'm only half his fee, and you don't have to do a firewalk. You just have to kind of walk out in the street for 10 minutes, and that's it.
Yes.
So no, I'm joking. I don't do any residential courses, and I've never done Tony Robbins, but I know he's expensive. But he will talk about how to turn your inner critic into your inner ally, because that's what all personal courses are doing, personal development courses. So you just got to get there fast. And I do. If you look on, in fact, you can get there for free. Go to my website. There's a thing called Remix. It's just a blog. It used to be a page, but my managers they said it's too in depth. People expect you to be an entertainer, but just go to the blog, look at the Remix thing. There's a whole process you can do for free, and that'll help you. It's based on CBT. It was Ben Affia said I've made CBT funky. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, very good. You've just done what I was about to ask you to do, is to tell people where they can find your material. So thank you.
If you can remember my name, it's like Bob Marley, but it's tommorley.com. Don't go to bobmarley.com. Go to Tom Morley, Morley.
Excellent.
And everything's there.
So, Tom, just to finish, before I turn your camera off and I tell this little story, if there was one thing that you've picked up in the last 9 months, gone through what you've been through, I hate the word, but you've genuinely have pivoted, you have changed, you have gone through a paradigm shift. How would you encourage people who are And I know they're out there who are sitting there thinking, oh God, you know, if I have to go on another Zoom call, or I have to talk to that Egypt again, or how would you suggest, or can you give anyone advice or something to read or something that can help with that? Get over that.
Yeah, I'd say get over yourself, grow up. The world's changed, and get online, take some risks.
Brilliant. Okay, Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And I love you.
Yeah, well, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
I'd say think of the outcomes.
Yeah.
Turn your inner critic into your inner ally. Seriously, there's many ways to do it, and we are all struggling, and we're all nearly failing. I'm terrified every time I go online, something's going to fail, but I just go ahead anyway.
Yeah,
you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. It was written 20 years ago, but it's still
it's a good one. There. It's a good one.
And for introverts, you don't have to speak to anybody at the conference. Turn the camera on.
Yeah.
Do your thing, turn it off, lie down, recover.
Yes. I mean, I learned years ago from a coach of mine he was more a mentor than a coach, but he said to me, don't get it right, Scott, just get it done. You know, so because one of my things was I was constantly trying to get everything right. And I mean, I wrote a book for Bloomsbury, and it was 160,000 words of rubbish because I had to keep every rabbit hole I dived down, every, you know, I couldn't resist it. And it was a terrible experience, but I learned a lot from it because it was like, no, you've got to stop doing this to yourself, you know. So yeah, I can definitely empathize with that experience. So Tom, thank you very much, mate. It's been lovely speaking to you again. And one of these times we'll get you on here and get you to do some drumming for us, because I think that would be good fun as well. But
yeah, where am I going to get the drums from?
I don't know, mate.
Green
even that behind you was a lesson, because at the beginning of all this, there's a lot of people fiddling about with these horrendous green screen things.
Yeah.
And nah, keep it simple.
I'll tell you a story about that. The 3 days after I brought these up out the van outside, vandals torched the van. It's an absolute write-off. So. God, we got some insurance money. My wife said, well, we don't need the van anymore. She went out and bought herself a sports car. I can get one drum in it with trouble. So,
Tom, you're a star and a master.
Every story starts with normal life and the interruption. Our normal life was me driving around the country, torch the van, interruption, sports car, driving through the country with the roof down, wearing goggles. You know,
fantastic.
All right, I'll let you go.
Tom, you're a star. Thank you very much.
All that other stuff, I'll come back to it later.
Cheers, mate. Cheers. So, how do you follow that? Well, you don't. But I did promise I'd come back to something, and it's a story that I've never told in the sort of the business world, really, because I could never really see the connection. But somebody said to me last week that no, you need to start telling that story. So I'm going to tell this story. It's quite brief, but it changed my life. I was a big music fan when I was a kid, and I grew up. Mum and Dad were not really into music, but there was a lot of Elvis Presley and Cliff Richard around. But then in the late 70s, somebody gave me an album. It was a compilation album called Axe Attack, and it's all, you know, Black Sabbath, AC/DC, Girls' School, Ted Nugent, the usual Whitesnake, all the usual sort of rock and roll bands. And that was it. I was hooked. And for the next 10 years, whenever I could afford it, which was quite rare, I went to gigs at a place called the Glasgow Apollo, which was a very famous venue in Glasgow, obviously. Wind the clock forward 15 years, and I'm in Yahoo Messenger chatting to my mate Andy. I don't know if you remember Yahoo Messenger, but it was a bit like this, really, without the cameras. And we were chatting about music, and Andy had just done the website for the Sydney Olympics. And I was working as a consultant, and I was pretty sick of it because I was traveling too much, and it might sound romantic traveling a lot, but it's not. And we were just having a beer and a chat, and we were talking about music. And I think it was Andy that said we should do a website. So we did. And that website went from 0 to 1 million hits. It was a one-page website. It went from 0 to 1 million hits in 3 days. and we thought, whoa, we're onto something here. So we started to, build the website. Within a couple of weeks, we had an okay website where we're getting 3 or 4 million hits. It was growing, and we ended up doing, I think we've done about, I don't know, over 100 radio interviews. We've done TV, we've done a documentary, we've done a musical to 12,000 people. There's been 2 books, and all the rest of it. And something then happened about 4 or 5 years ago, where we were invited up to Glasgow by one of the radio stations, and they actually gave us, for new watchers, this is what I call my artifact wall. So it changes every week, and I put on it things that remind me. This is a really cheap little piece of plastic that means the world to me, because this was an award we got for services to Scottish music. And that has grown now into something, and I think it's the music part of it. There are now, we've got nearly 9,000 people in our Facebook group, and 6,000 of those people are active on that group. And I think that's about music. I think it brings all of this round to something about how people love getting together, love enjoying music together. And it's something that I am so grateful for. So, don't forget that, when you're busy, sometimes music can pull you out of things. But that story, I mean, it was a very brief one. I'm sitting at my breakfast with the kids, the phone rings. My partner answers the phone, and she says, "Oh, it was for me." And she says, "Oh, who is it? Who is it?" And he said, "Oh, it's Gary." I was like, "Right, Gary who?" "Gary Newman." Gary Newman phoned me at home, and we had a chat about the Glasgow Apollo. We ended up doing an interview and stuff. And that happened not once or twice, it happened dozens of times. And I think, we tapped into something there. And I think music is special for that reason. I love music. I think it's really special. So anyway, I've truncated that story, but it's a long story. But it was very, very important part of my life. So I love music, and the stories in music are great. And some of the great story writers are musicians, and I'm sure some of you have got particular examples of that. So I can't do my usual play out, because as I say, the kids have got the other laptop, and it's just been too hectic for me to do it. But there are 2 things I just want you to remember. Just want you to remember this. You've all seen me show this before, but I do believe that stories are more important now than probably since we were living in caves, because stories help us see the world through other people's shoes, and through that we can build our empathy muscle. So stories are empathy, an empathy engine. And I hope Tom and I have demonstrated how you can do that just by riffing off each other, talking about a common subject and common experiences. So when you go back to the office, maybe you walk up 3 or 4 steps up to your study or your living room or your office, think about what's happened this week and how those stories could maybe help other people. Because you know what? As I say every week, folks, those stories can absolutely change the world. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. It's been brilliant. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back next week. And boy, have I got a surprise for you next week. It's going to be fascinating. I'm going to announce it on LinkedIn in the next couple of hours. Just a couple of things to iron out before we deal with it properly. But thanks very much. I hope to see you again next week. My name's Scott McArthur, and thank you for tuning in to ARTEFACTLive, the art and science of storytelling.